The castle slept, but fear kept me awake. It was a cold, damp fear that seeped into my bones like the mist covering the moat outside. I was sitting on the edge of my narrow bed in the servants' quarters, holding a crumpled note that smelled of cheap tobacco and despair. The words, written in hurried, shaky handwriting, burned in my mind, even in the dark. "They're going to kill me, Lily. If I don't pay by the third watch, they're going to kill me. Finn, my brother, my foolish, sweet, reckless brother, the only family I had left in this world of stone and sharp teeth." I looked at the small barred window high up on the wall. The moon was obscured by heavy rain clouds. The third watch was in 2 hours. If I was caught leaving through the service gates, the penalty was clear: lashing or the gallows, depending on the mood of the captain of the guard. But if I didn't go, Finn would be dead by dawn. There was no choice. There never had been, when it came to him. I stood up, the icy stone floor biting my bare feet. I pulled on my worn boots, tying the laces with slightly trembling fingers. I put on my gray wool cloak, threadbare and too thin for the night it was, and pulled the hood over my blonde hair. I needed to be invisible, a shadow among shadows. I retrieved the small leather pouch hidden beneath my mattress, my savings of 3 years. Every coin earned scrubbing floors, washing linen until my hands bled, enduring the lustful stares of the guards and the contempt of the nobles. It was everything I had, and it was all going into the pocket of a sadistic moneylender. I opened the door to the room carefully, praying the hinges wouldn't squeak. The corridor was dark and silent, smelling of extinguished candle wax and old stone. I walked, fast, light. I knew every inch of this castle. I knew which service stairstep squeaked, the third one, which guard slept at his post, old Tom in the pantry, and which back door had the jammed lock that yielded with just the right push, the herb garden door. The rain started as soon as I stepped outside. It wasn't a gentle drizzle. It was a winter storm, cold and furious. The water slapped my face like blows, soaking my cloak in seconds. The wind howled, trying to push me back inside. I lowered my head and forced my body against the storm. The lower city lay at the foot of the castle hill, a maze of narrow streets, open sewers, and crooked houses that seemed to lean on each other to keep from falling. The scent changed as I descended. The clean, rarefied air of the castle gave way to the stench of burnt coal, rotting garbage, and human misery. The Blind Dog Tavern was the appointed spot. A dark wooden structure with dirty windows that leaked yellow light and noise. I stopped at the door, my heart beating so hard it ached against my ribs. This was not my world. I belonged to the silent corridors, the warm kitchens, the safe invisibility of being a servant. Here, I was a lamb entering the wolves' den. I took a deep breath, tasting the metallic flavor of fear in my mouth, and pushed the door open. The heat hit me first, suffocating and humid, then the smell. Sour beer, old sweat, vomit, and tobacco, and underneath it all, the unmistakable scent of danger. The tavern fell silent when I entered. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, men with scars, missing teeth, predatory stares. I saw malicious smiles form. I saw hands reach for knives. I kept my hood low, clutching the coin pouch to my chest. "I'm looking for Lord Vigo," I said, trying to make my voice sound firm, but it came out as a strangled whisper. A giant man sitting near the fireplace laughed. "The Lord doesn't receive visits from wet little mice." "I have the payment," I insisted, lifting the pouch. The sound of the coins clinking cut through the air. The atmosphere shifted. Greed replaced mockery. A door in the back opened. A man walked out. He did not look like the others. He wore velvet, although stained. He had rings on his fingers, and a smile that was sharper than any knife in the room. Lord Vigo, the fallen noble, the court parasite. Well, he said, his voice soft and oily. "The devoted little sister. Finn said you'd come. I doubted it. I thought you were too smart to risk your neck for that waste of space. Where is he?" I asked. "Safe. For now." He held out his hand. "The money." I walked toward him. Each step seemed to take an eternity. I handed over the pouch. He opened it, weighed it in his hand, checked the contents. "It's all there," I said. "It is," he agreed. "For today." What does that mean? The debt is paid. The gambling debt is paid. He smiled, showing teeth that were too perfect. But the interest, my dear, the interest is a living thing. It grows. You promised. A moneylender's promises are worth as much as an addict's. He leaned close to me. His smell was cloying, expensive perfume trying to hide rot. But don't worry. Your brother is free. This time. He touched my chin with a cold finger. I recoiled violently. Don't touch me. His eyes gleamed, not with lust, but with something worse. Power. You have fire, servant. I like that. Perhaps one day your debt can be paid in other ways. The laughter in the tavern exploded around me. I turned my back and ran. I stepped out into the rain, the cold air washing his scent from my skin, but not from my mind. I ran back to the castle, up the muddy hill, slipping, falling to my knees in the dirt, getting up and running again. My clothes were heavy with water and mud. My shoes were soaked. I was trembling uncontrollably. I reached the castle walls, the herb garden door. Was it locked? Please no. I pushed. It yielded. I slipped inside, closing the door behind me, leaning my back against the cold wood. Darkness, silence, safety. It was done. Finn was alive. I was back. No one had seen me. I started breathing again, the panic slowly subsiding. And then, a flash of lightning illuminated the corridor through a high window, and I saw a silhouette. Tall, motionless, leaning against the stone wall, just 10 feet from me. It was not a guard. Guards did not have that relaxed, predatory stance. Guards did not emanate an aura that made the air vibrate and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. The lightning passed, plunging us into darkness again, but the image was burned into my retina. Golden eyes, glowing in the dark. King Kieran, and he was looking directly at me. The silence in the corridor was so heavy, it felt like it had mass. I could hear my own breath, fast and ragged, scratching my throat. The sound of the rain outside seemed distant, muffled by the thick stone walls. But the real storm was right here, standing 10 feet from me. King Kieran pushed off the wall. It was a slow, fluid, predatory movement. He didn't walk. He slid through the darkness. His scent hit me before he drew close. Ozone, like the air before lightning strikes, mixed with expensive leather and something deeply masculine and wild. Musk. Danger. I wanted to run. I wanted to merge with the door behind me, but my legs were frozen. He stopped in front of me. He was so tall he blocked the little light coming from the window. I felt the heat emanating from him, a living furnace beneath the black clothes, violently contrasting with my soaked and trembling body. Is this the time to arrive, Lilith? His voice was low, a subterranean rumble that vibrated the floor beneath my feet. There was no explicit anger, which was worse. There was control. Terrible, threadbare control. I swallowed hard. Your Majesty, He took another step, invading my personal space. Now he was so close I could see the details in his golden eyes, the dilated pupils that seemed to swallow the light. And then he inhaled. It was a deep, deliberate sound. He tilted his head, his nose brushing my wet shoulder, scenting the air around me. I felt his body stiffen. You smell of rain, he whispered, his voice growing rougher. Of mud, of fear. He moved closer, pressing me against the door. And you smell of them. The low growl that escaped his throat made my knees buckle. Cheap beer, smoke, males. The last word was spat out with such visceral hatred that I flinched. The scent of other males is on you, Lilith. Everywhere. One of his hands went up, flattening against the door next to my head, trapping me. The other grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. His fingers were hot, strong, possessive. Where were you? He demanded. The golden eyes darkened, patches of black starting to bleed into the iris. The wolf was waking. Who were you with while I tore this castle apart looking for you? While I thought you had been taken? Hurt? No one took me, I managed to whisper. I left, of my own free will. Free will? He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. To go to a tavern in the lower city? In the middle of the night? Dressed like that? He tugged my wet cloak, exposing my servant's dress plastered to my body by the rain. To offer yourself to whom? A drunken guard? A filthy merchant? No, it wasn't like that. Then what was it? He leaned in, his face inches from mine. His breath was hot on my cold face. Tell me, and pray that I believe you, because his scent— He sniffed my neck again, where Vigo had touched me. His scent is on your skin, and it makes me want to tear someone's throat out. Hot tears stung my eyes, mixing with the cold rain. He thought I had a lover. He was jealous. A crazy, irrational, terrifying jealousy. Finn, I said, my voice broken. It was for Finn. Kieran paused. The hand on my chin loosened slightly but did not let go. Your brother? Yes, he has debts. Gambling debts. Lord Vigo. He said he would kill Finn if I didn't pay today. Confusion crossed Kieran's eyes, momentarily replacing the fury. Vigo? The moneylender? Yes. I went to take the money. My savings. That was all. I swear. He studied me, looking for the lie, looking for the betrayal. His eyes swept my face, reading the fear, the exhaustion, the naked truth. You left the castle alone, he said slowly, processing. You went down into the most dangerous hole in the city. You entered Vigo's den, unarmed, to save your brother. He is my family. He's all I have. You could have died, he said. His voice changed. The predatory anger receded, replaced by something different. A cold shock. They could have taken you, hurt you, and I wouldn't have known where you were. His hand on my chin shifted. It ceased being a claw and became a touch. His thumb traced the line of my jaw, wiping away a drop of rain. You are a fool, he murmured. A brave, reckless fool. I did what I had to do. You risked your life for him. He seemed fascinated by this concept. Loyalty, sacrifice without personal gain. And you came back. You came back here. This is my home. Where else would I go? You could have fled. With the money. The money was for the debt. You came back, he repeated, as if that were the most important part. He stepped back slightly, giving me room to breathe, but his eyes never left mine. You came back to me. I came back to my job, Your Majesty, I corrected, trying to regain some sense of decorum, though I was shaking and soaked. Don't call me that, he growled softly. Not now. Not when you smell of fear and rain and— He inhaled again, more gently this time. And of you. Night-blooming flowers. He touched my wet hair. Get out of those wet clothes, he ordered. You are freezing. I'll go to my room. No, he cut in. You will get sick in those damp quarters. Come with me. What? I can't. It is not a request, Lilith. He took my hand. His hand was enormous, swallowing mine. You will get warm, you will dry off, and you will tell me every detail about this debt, and about Vigo. Vigo is dangerous. Vigo is a worm, Kieran said, his voice hard as steel, and he made the mistake of threatening what is under my protection. He started walking, pulling me along. Your protection? I asked, stumbling to keep up with his long strides. I'm just a servant. He stopped, turned to me in the middle of the dark corridor. You are not just anything, he said. You are the only person in this castle who had the courage to look me in the eye, and the only one who— He stopped, his jaw clenching. The only one who what? Forget it. He started walking again. Let's go. He led me not to the kitchens, nor to the servants' lodging. He led me to the royal wing, to the corridors with thick carpets and lit torches, to the door of his own chambers. Enter, he said, opening the heavy oak door. I hesitated. This is improper. If someone sees— I am the king, he said. I define what is proper. I stepped inside. The room was immense. A gigantic fireplace roared in one wall, filling the space with heat and orange light. There was a huge bed, scattered books, maps. It smelled of him, intensely of him. Sit by the fire, he instructed, pointing to a fur rug before the hearth. I obeyed, grateful for the warmth. My teeth were still chattering. Kieran went to a chest and pulled something out. He returned and threw it over my shoulders. It wasn't just any blanket. It was his royal mantle, black velvet lined with silver wolf fur, heavy, warm, and saturated with his scent. I wrapped myself in it, burying my nose in the soft fur without thinking. The smell of ozone and musk enveloped me, calming my racing heart in a way that should not have been possible. Kieran watched. His eyes shone. Better? Yes, I murmured. Thank you. He sat down in a nearby armchair, observing me. The anger was gone, but the intensity was not. He looked like a dragon guarding his treasure. Tomorrow, he said, everything will change. What do you mean? Vigo thinks he has power over you, over your brother. He will find he has miscalculated. He has the promissory note. He has a piece of paper. I have teeth. Kieran leaned forward. That debt is finished, Lilith. Finn is free. You will pay? I will assume the debt, he corrected, which means that now Finn owes me. And you? He looked at me, his eyes locked on mine. You owe me. A shiver ran down my spine. Not of fear, of anticipation. What do you want? I asked. Loyalty, he said. Absolute, unquestionable. You already have my loyalty. I am your servant. No, he said, standing up and walking toward me. He knelt in front of me, ignoring the hierarchy, ignoring everything. He touched my face, his warm hand against my cold skin. I don't want a servant's loyalty. I want the loyalty of the woman who ran in the rain for love. I want that fire. For me. He stayed there. Too close. Too dangerous. Go to sleep, he whispered, standing up abruptly, as if fleeing from himself. Stay here tonight. On the rug. It is warm. I will watch the door. And you? I do not sleep, he said, going to the window to look at the rain. I hunt. I closed my eyes, curled up in the king's cloak, in the king's room, under the king's protection. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt marked. And I didn't know if this was salvation or damnation. I woke up to the smell of burnt wood and the gentle heat of the still-lit fireplace. For a moment, confusion clouded my mind. This was not the hard, damp mattress of the servants' lodging. It was soft fur, velvet. I opened my eyes. The high stone ceiling, the heavy curtains, the sword hung on the wall, the king's room. The memory of the night before hit me like a punch. The escape. Vigo. The rain. Kieran. I sat up quickly, the royal mantle sliding from my shoulders. I was alone in the room. The door opened. Kieran walked in. He was already dressed, impeccable in a black tunic with silver embroidery, his damp hair slicked back. He looked rested, dangerous, and completely in control. Good morning, he said. There was no warmth in his voice, but there was also none of the fury of the night before. There was purpose. Your Majesty. I stood up awkwardly, trying to smooth my crumpled dress. I must go. Work. You have no work in the kitchens today, he cut in. Come. Where to? To the throne room. My stomach plummeted. Why? To settle debts. He didn't wait. He walked out, and I followed him, stumbling to keep up with his long strides. We passed the guards, who looked at me curiously but said nothing. The royal mantle was still with me. I tried to return it, but Kieran just shook his head. Keep it. You will need it. We arrived at the throne room. The double doors were open. The hall was full. Courtiers, counselors, guards. The buzzing ceased when Kieran entered. He walked to the dais, climbed the steps, and sat on the black stone throne. I stood by the entrance, uncertain. Kieran gestured imperceptibly. Here, at the foot of the throne. I walked there, feeling everyone's eyes burning into my back. Who is she? The servant. Why is she here? Then I saw. Near one of the pillars, leaning with studied arrogance, was Lord Vigo. He smirked at me, the predator's smile that had found its cornered prey. Beside him, 2 guards held Finn. Finn was pale, with a black eye and his hands tied. Finn! I cried, taking a step toward him. Stay where you are, Kieran's voice thundered. I stopped. I looked at the king. He was not looking at me. He was looking at Vigo. Lord Vigo, Kieran said, I hear you have pending business with this young woman's family. Vigo pushed off the pillar, bowing exaggeratedly. "Private business, Your Majesty. Gambling debts. The boy is a fool with the dice. And the sister," he looked at me lewdly, "seems willing to pay in any way necessary." Kieran tightened his grip on the arm of the throne. The stone groaned. "How much?" Kieran asked. "Pardon? How much does he owe?" "The total amount. With interest. With everything." "Well," Vigo scratched his chin, "it's 200 gold coins. A considerable sum. I doubt the servant has—" Kieran signaled. The royal treasurer stepped forward, carrying a heavy velvet bag. He threw it at Vigo's feet. The metallic sound echoed in the silent hall. 300, Kieran said, "for the debt, and for the inconvenience." Vigo looked at the bag, then at Kieran. Greed fought with surprise. "Your Majesty, that is generous. But why the interest in a commoner's debt?" "Because from this moment on," Kieran declared, his voice projecting into every corner of the room, "their debt is mine, and they are mine." A murmur of shock went through the court. The king paying servants' debts? Vigo picked up the bag. "If Your Majesty insists, the boy is free." "Release him," Kieran ordered Vigo's guards. They untied Finn. He ran to me, weeping. "Lily, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I hugged him, relieved, but my eyes were on Kieran. He had done what he promised. But at what cost? "Take the boy to the guards' quarters," Kieran instructed his captain. "Give him food and a job. A real job. Away from the dice." "Yes, sir." Finn was led away. I was left alone in the center of the hall. Kieran stood up. He descended the steps of the dais. He stopped in front of me. "Your brother's debt to Vigo is paid," he said, low enough for only me to hear, but loud enough for the court to feel the weight. "But his debt to the world is now yours." "What does that mean?" I whispered. "It means you no longer serve the kitchens. You no longer scrub floors. You no longer belong to anyone except me." He reached out and touched the clasp holding my old cloak beneath his royal mantle. He unfastened it. The old cloak fell to the floor. I was left with only the simple dress and the king's mantle on my shoulders. "You are my personal servant now," he announced to the court. "My shadow, my taster, my keeper of secrets." The murmurs grew louder. "The favorite," someone whispered. "The mistress," said another. I felt my face burn. Kieran heard it too. He turned to the crowd, his golden eyes flashing. "Mind your tongues," he growled. "This woman saved her own family with courage that many of you lack. She is under my direct protection. Whoever insults her, insults me." He turned back to me. "Come." He guided me out of the hall, ignoring Vigo, ignoring the court. We went up the stairs to the royal wing. We stopped before a door next to his. "Your new room," he said. I opened it. It was beautiful. Dark wood furniture, soft carpets, a window overlooking the gardens. But there was no lock on the door from the inside, and there was a connecting door to his room. "It's a cage," I said, turning to him. "It's a sanctuary," he corrected. "You were in danger down there. Vigo doesn't forget. He would try again. Here, he cannot touch you. And you? Can you touch me?" Kieran took a step back, as if the question had burned him. "I could," he admitted, his voice hoarse. "But I will not. Not until you ask. And if I never ask, then we will live like this. I, the king in the tower. You, the shadow by my side. Why, Kieran? Why do all this?" He touched my face, a brief, almost painful touch. "Because last night, when you walked in wet and trembling, I felt something I haven't felt since my sister died. Fear of losing someone." He pulled his hand away. "You are my anchor, Lilith. I don't know why, but my wolf is calmed when you are near, and I need calm." He stepped away, going to the connecting door. "Rest. Your new duties begin tomorrow." He entered his room and closed the door. I stood there, in the midst of luxury, feeling the weight of my new life. I had saved Finn. I had escaped Vigo, but I had traded a debt of money for a debt of soul, and my creditor was the most dangerous man in the kingdom. The following weeks were an education in a different kind of survival. I learned to be invisible in plain sight. I stayed by Kieran's side in council meetings, pouring wine, listening to state secrets, observing who lied and who told the truth. I learned to taste his food. Every meal. I took the first bite. Kieran watched, tense, until he was sure I wouldn't drop dead. "You hate this," I said once, eating a piece of pheasant. "I hate the idea of you being poisoned," he replied. "But I hate the idea of being poisoned and leaving the kingdom to the vultures more." I learned to read his moods. When his eyes turned dark gold, he was angry. When he tapped his fingers on the table, he was impatient. And when he grew very quiet, looking at me across the room, he was fighting the wolf. The tension between us grew every day. Accidental touches while passing a goblet. Gazes that lasted seconds too long. His scent permeating my clothes, mine permeating his room. The castle gossiped. They said I warmed his bed, that I was a witch who had enchanted him. Vigo watched me at banquets, smiling, waiting, and Finn was doing well, working in the stables, safe, but I knew the peace was fragile. Kieran was right. Vigo did not forget, and the Alpha King, powerful as he was, had a weakness now. Me. The fragility of my new life became evident on the night of the solstice banquet. The great hall was decorated with holly branches and floating candles. Nobles from all the allied clans were present, dressed in silks and velvets, displaying jewels and alliances. The music was loud, the wine flowed freely, and the air was heavy with the smell of politics and perfume. I was by Kieran's side, as always. I wore a simple gray-silver silk dress, but its cut made it clear I was no ordinary servant. I was the king's shadow. Kieran was tense. I felt the stiffness in his shoulders beneath the formal tunic. He hated these parties. He hated the false smiles, the empty promises. "More wine, Your Majesty?" I asked, leaning in to fill his cup. He took my wrist, stopping me. The touch was quick, electric. "No," he murmured. "Stay close. Something is wrong." He sensed it. The alpha instinct never failed. I looked around the hall. I saw Lord Vigo. He was talking to an ambassador from the south, but his eyes were on me. He raised his cup in a silent, mocking toast. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Kieran followed my gaze. A low growl vibrated in his throat. "Ignore him," he said. "He cannot touch you here." But Vigo didn't need to touch me to hurt me. The night progressed. Kieran was surrounded by counselors demanding attention about trade routes. I was pushed to the periphery of the circle, still vigilant, but separated from him by a wall of bodies and voices. That's when a servant approached. A young boy, trembling. "Lady Lilith?" he whispered. "A message, urgent, from the stables. Finn." My heart stopped. "What happened?" "They said there was an accident. A horse. He was kicked." I didn't think. I didn't check with Kieran. The mention of Finn shut down my rational brain and activated my sisterly instinct. "Where is he?" "In the guard's infirmary. But they asked you to go to the back of the kitchen to fetch ointments." I nodded and left the hall, slipping through the shadows. I ran through the empty corridors toward the kitchens. The castle seemed huge and silent away from the party. I reached the service corridor. It was deserted. "Hello, Lilith." The voice came from a dark alcove. I stopped, spinning around. Lord Vigo stepped out of the shadows. He was not alone, or at least he seemed not to be. Two of his henchmen, the same ones from the tavern, blocked the way behind me. "You—" I backed up, but hit a broad chest. The henchman held my arms. "Don't scream," Vigo warned, smiling. He was toying with a small dagger, cleaning his nails. It would be impolite to interrupt the king's party. "Where is Finn? The accident?" "There was no accident," he said softly. Yet, relief and terror collided in my chest. "What do you want?" "I want what belongs to me. Information." He stepped closer, the cloying smell of his perfume making me nauseous. "You are close to him, the king. You hear what he whispers. You see the maps he studies. I don't know anything. I'm just a servant." "You are his confidant," Vigo corrected, tracing the tip of the knife across my cheek. "Not cutting, just threatening. And I need to know the routes of the silver caravans leaving on the next moon. The king changed the schedules. You know when." "I don't know." "A lie," he signaled. The henchman behind me squeezed my arm, twisting it painfully. I gave a muffled cry. You will find out, and you will tell me. Tomorrow at midnight, in the East Tower. I would never betray Kieran. I spat. Ah, loyalty, Vigo laughed. So noble, so fragile. He pulled something from his pocket. A ring. My father's signet ring. The only inheritance Finn had kept. Finn, I whispered. He's fine, for now. He's playing cards with my men in the stables. They are rude when they lose. It would be a shame if he lost a few fingers for cheating. The blackmail was clear. Spy on the king or lose my brother. You have until tomorrow, Vigo said, putting away the knife. Think carefully, darling. The king can give you dresses, but I can give you your brother's life. He gestured and the men released me. I fell to my knees on the stone floor. They left, laughing softly, disappearing into the shadows like rats. I stayed there, trembling. The choice was impossible. Betray the man who saved me, who protected me, who looked at me as if I were precious, or condemn my brother to torture and death. I stood up. I wiped away the tears. I returned to the great hall. The party continued. The music was cheerful. A lie. I saw Kieran. He was looking for me. His eyes swept the crowd, the tension evident in his posture. When he saw me enter, the relief on his face was so visible it hurt. He came to me, ignoring the nobles. Where were you? He asked, low but urgent. He held my arms, examining me. You're pale. What happened? I could lie. I could invent an excuse. I could protect Finn by betraying Kieran. It was what the old Lilith would do, the Lilith who lived in fear. But I looked into his golden eyes, at the genuine concern, at the promise of protection he made me. I was no longer that girl. Kieran had taught me to be brave. Vigo, I whispered. Kieran's eyes instantly darkened. The black invaded the gold. What did he do? He cornered me, threatened Finn. He wants the silver routes. I felt Kieran's muscles turn rock hard beneath my hands. His aura exploded, a wave of power and fury that made the nearby candles flicker. He threatened you, Kieran said, his voice strangely calm, the calm before the hurricane. Inside my house, during my party, he said he would hurt Finn if I didn't tell him. And you came to tell me. He looked at me with an intensity that burned. You could have accepted. You could have betrayed me to save your brother. I trust you, I said, more than I am afraid of him. Those words broke something inside Kieran. The last barrier. Come, he said. Where? To end this. He made no scene. He didn't shout. He took my hand and guided me out of the hall, to his private chambers. Inside, he locked the door. He went to a chest and took out 2 daggers. He handed one to me. Do you know how to use that? No. Learn. The point goes in the soft part. He fastened the other to his belt. Vigo wants a meeting? We will give him a meeting. Kieran, he has men. He has Finn. Finn is safe, he said. I sent my personal guard to the stables as soon as you left the hall. I felt your fear, Lilith, through the bond. Bond? We'll explain later. Now. He turned to me, his eyes totally black, his face starting to change, his fangs descending. Now we hunt. What are we going to do? You will go to the meeting, he said. You will say you have the information. And you? I will be the shadow. The plan was dangerous, insane. But looking at the monster Kieran was becoming to protect me, I felt a strange security. I'm ready, I said. He touched my face, his hand with retracted claws, gentle. If he touches you, Kieran promised, I will take him apart bone by bone. We went out into the night. Vigo's conspiracy was about to meet the king's judgment. The East Tower was a forgotten place, ancient, damp, used only for storing broken furniture and memories the castle preferred to bury. Midnight had just chimed, the distant bell echoing like an omen through the cold stone. I stood in the center of the circular room, holding a rolled-up parchment. My hands trembled, not from cold, but from pure adrenaline. Under the fabric of my dress, the dagger Kieran gave me weighed against my thigh, a cold reminder that diplomacy was over. Vigo emerged from the shadows of the staircase. He was alone, or at least he appeared to be. His steps were silent, but his scent, that cloying perfume mixed with the rot of his soul, announced his presence long before he was seen. "Punctual," he said, smiling. The moonlight streaming through the window slits illuminated half his face, turning it into a grotesque mask. "I knew you were smart, Lilith. Family comes first. Where is Finn?" My voice came out steady, surprising myself. "Safe. My men are taking care of him. As soon as I verify the information, he will be released." He held out his hand, the ring sparkling in the gloom. "The parchment." I took a step forward, extending the rolled paper. Vigo advanced avidly, greed shining in his eyes. He didn't look at me. He looked at the prize. The moment his fingers touched the paper, I let it drop. The parchment hit the floor. Vigo looked down, annoyed. "Clumsy. Pick it up." "No," I said. He lifted his head, his eyes narrowing. "What?" I said no. "You pick it up, if you want it." Vigo laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "Do you think you are in a position to negotiate?" "Your brother." "My brother is in the stables, protected by 6 of the king's elite guards," I interrupted. Kieran knew. I told him everything. Vigo's smile vanished, his face contorted in fury. "You treacherous bitch! You've condemned both of you." He drew a dagger from his sleeve, quick as a snake. He lunged at me. I didn't flinch. I reached for my own dagger, but didn't need to use it. A shadow separated from the darkness behind Vigo. There was no sound, only an overwhelming presence that made the air dense and electric. Vigo stopped, feeling the hairs on the back of his neck prickle. He turned slowly. Kieran was there. He wore neither crown nor royal mantle. He wore tight, silent black battle leather. But what was terrifying was not the clothes. It was the face. His eyes were bottomless black pits. The fangs were fully exposed, shining white in the darkness. The claws on his hands were long, lethal. He was transformed, the beast in charge, constrained only by a thread of human will. "You made a mistake, Vigo," Kieran said. The voice was not human. It was a tectonic growl, coming from the depths of the earth. "You threatened my mate." Vigo paled, backing up until he hit the wall. "Mate? She's a servant, a nobody." "She is mine," Kieran roared, and the sound made dust fall from the ceiling. Vigo, cornered, attacked. It was a desperate move. He threw the dagger at Kieran. Kieran didn't even move. He caught the blade in the air with his bare hand. The metal cut the skin, but he didn't seem to feel it. He squeezed his hand, and the steel dagger snapped with a dry crack. He opened his hand, letting the pieces fall. His blood, dark and thick, dripped onto the floor. "My turn," he said. He advanced. He didn't run. He walked. With every step, the pressure in the room increased. Vigo shouted for his men, but no one came. They had been silently neutralized before Kieran entered. Kieran grabbed Vigo by the neck and lifted him off the floor with one hand. Vigo kicked the air, choking, uselessly grasping Kieran's wrist. "You wanted information," Kieran snarled, bringing his monstrous face close to the terrified noble. "Here's one. I am king, not by lineage, but because I am the strongest monster in this damn castle." He threw Vigo across the room. The man flew, colliding with an old table that shattered under the impact. Vigo groaned, trying to get up, blood running from his broken nose. "Mercy," he whimpered. Kieran laughed. A terrible sound. "Mercy? Did you offer mercy to her? To her brother? You used their fear as currency." Kieran approached the fallen figure. He crouched down. "Lilith," he called without looking back. "Come here." I hesitated, then approached. The smell of blood and ozone was strong. "Look at him," Kieran commanded. "Look at the man who terrorized you." I looked. Vigo was pathetic, broken, filthy. There was no power in him now, only fear. "He is nothing," Kieran said. "Without his threats, without his henchmen, he is just weak flesh." Kieran looked at Vigo. "You will leave this castle. You will leave this city. If I hear your name, if I smell your scent within 100 miles, I will not be merciful. I will hunt you, and I will let the crows finish the job." Yes, yes, Your Majesty. Go. Vigo crawled away, literally dragging himself out of the room, sobbing. When he was gone, silence returned to the tower. Kieran stood up, his back to me. His shoulders rose and fell with heavy breaths. He was trembling. The fight not to kill, not to yield to the bloodlust, was costing him dearly. "Kieran?" I called softly. He didn't turn around. "Don't come near. Not yet. The wolf is too close." "I am not afraid," I said, and realized it was true. I walked to him. He was tense as a bowstring. I reached out and touched his back. The leather was hot, almost burning. He shuddered at my touch. "Lilith, you protected me," I whispered. "You let him live for me, so as not to stain my hands with his death." He turned slowly. His face was still transformed, the fangs visible, the eyes black. He looked like a demon from ancient legends. But when he looked at me, the expression softened. "You are my sanity," he said, his voice slowly returning to human. "When I wanted to rip his throat out, I thought of you, of how you would look at me if I were just a murderer. I would look at you as I look at you now," I said, "as my king, my protector." I raised my hand and touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw where the wolf fur was receding. He closed his eyes, leaning his face into my palm, a gesture of submission and adoration that took my breath away. "You bled," I said, looking at his hand cut by the dagger. "It heals quickly," he murmured. He opened his eyes. The gold was returning, expelling the black. "I love you," he said. The words hung in the dusty air of the tower. Simple. Absolute. My heart stopped, then restarted at a frantic pace. "You... what?" "I love you," he repeated, stronger. "I loved you from the moment I smelled you in the rain. I tried to fight it. I tried to make you a servant, a prisoner, anything to keep distance. But I failed." He held my hands. "I don't want you to be my servant. I don't want you to be my protected. I want you to be my equal. Kieran, accept me," he pleaded, the vulnerability in his eyes more terrifying than any monster. "Accept the wolf and the man. Accept the throne and the blood. Be my queen. Truly." Tears streamed down my face. I, the girl who cleaned floors, being proposed to by the Alpha King in the highest tower of the castle. "I am just Lilith," I whispered. "You are everything," he corrected. He leaned in and kissed me. It was not a soft kiss. It was the kiss of someone who survived war. Intense, deep, tasting of blood and promises. I felt his fangs brush my lips, but they didn't hurt. They were part of him, and now, part of me. I kissed him back, burying my hands in his hair, pulling him closer. The fear was gone. The doubt was gone. There was only us. The king and the servant, the wolf and the night-blooming flower. And when we parted, breathless, I knew that the true transformation had not been his. It had been mine. I was no longer the frightened sister trying to save her brother. I was the queen who had tamed the beast. Dawn arrived with a reverent silence. The castle still slept, unaware of the battle that had been fought and won in its highest tower. Vigo was gone, escorted to the city gates by shadows loyal to Kieran, his power broken, his influence dissolved like mist in the sun. We were on the balcony of the royal chambers. The air was cold and clean, smelling of dew and the promise of a new day. Kieran stood beside me, leaning on the stone balustrade, looking out at the kingdom spread below. He no longer wore the battle leather. He wore a simple linen shirt, open at the neck, revealing skin marked by old scars. He looked peaceful. For the first time since I met him, the constant tension in his shoulders had disappeared. "What are you thinking about?" I asked, touching his arm. He turned, a lazy smile curving his lips. "How I'm going to explain to the council that my new queen used to steal apples from the pantry." I laughed. "I didn't steal. I borrowed with intent to repay. Of course. And the payment was your irresistible charm with the cook." He took my hand, intertwining our fingers. "They will talk, you know. They will say it's scandalous, that it's improper." "Let them talk," I replied, leaning my head on his shoulder. "Words don't hurt those who have already faced monsters." "True." He kissed the top of my head. "Finn will be fine. The captain of the guard says he has a way with horses. Perhaps one day he'll be master of the stables. That is more than I could ever dream for him. You dream too small, Lilith, he murmured. But I will teach you to dream like a queen. I looked at him, at the golden eyes that now saw me not as a possession, but as a partner. Remember that first night? I asked. When you exploded with jealousy in the corridor? He grimaced. I prefer to forget my lack of composure. I don't. That's when I knew. Knew what? That you weren't stone. That beneath the crown and the fear, there was a heart beating just as desperately as mine. He pulled me into a hug, enveloping me completely. I was so afraid, Lilith. Afraid that you would be like the others. That you would betray me. That you would use me. I would never use you. I know. Now I know. He lifted my face to his. You saved me, you know. Not from Vigo. From myself. From the darkness that was consuming me. We saved each other, I corrected. I gave you humanity. You gave me strength. The sun began to rise on the horizon, painting the sky pink and gold. The light bathed the castle, driving out the last shadows of the night. Kieran pulled something from his pocket. A ring. Not a heavy crown jewel, but a simple ring of braided gold, with a small moonstone in the center. My mother gave me this, he said. She told me to give it to the woman who made me want to be better than a king. Someone who made me want to be a man. He slid the ring onto my finger. Lilith, do you accept to rule beside me? Not behind me, not below me. Beside me. In every battle, in every feast, in every silence. I looked at the ring. At the waking city below. At the man who held my hand as if it were his only anchor in the world. I accept, I said, with all my heart. He kissed me as the first rays of sun touched our faces. There were no more secrets. There were no more debts. Only us. Epilogue. Final narration. Lilith's voice. I went out into the rain that night to save my brother from human monsters, armed only with coins and fear. I thought I was walking toward my doom. Instead, I walked toward my destiny. I gave my soul to the monster who wore a crown, the Alpha King whom all feared. And I discovered that beneath the fangs and the fury, there was a love so vast and fierce that it could burn the world just to keep me warm. They call it a fairy tale, the servant who became queen. But I know the truth. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was choice. The choice to see beyond the beast. The choice to trust when everything told me to run. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to be his, and he, gloriously, terrifyingly, was mine, forever. Thank you for being here and for joining me for another story. I truly hope you enjoyed it. If you want, leave your comment. I love reading what you feel and think after each episode. Thank you for the love, and see you in the next story.